When we are talking about novels, dramas, and short stories, we learn using a mind map. Okay, so put poetry out of your head for a second. Think of novel. Here I'm talking about The Picture of Dorian Gray. I'm talking about Life of Pi, helping with first additional language. Is there a novel? I only think there's a drama, there's Macbeth, and then there's short stories. And then of course poetry, but we'll deal with poetry in a second. So quickly think for yourself where I've written in your notes how to study for your novel, short story, and drama. Quickly write down what genres you do for first additional language. Write them there. Oh, there is a novel, the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So first additional language, write down what novel do you do. If you don't do a novel, are you doing a short story? Okay, then write their short stories. If you're not doing short stories or novel, you're doing a drama, Macbeth. Okay. Poetry we'll deal with later. So first additional language, because you only do two genres, if one of your genres is poetry, we'll deal with that in a second. Now, home language, you do three genres, okay? One of them is poetry, we put that away for now, but you do a novel and you do a drama. Okay, so what novel are you doing? Life of Pi? Ah, wonderful, the best one. The Picture of Dorian Gray. Okay. And then, what drama are you doing? Who's doing The Crucible? Put up your hand. Okay, good. Nice ones on The Crucible. Then you've got a fair amount of you, I'm assuming, are doing Othello. And then the rest of us are doing Hamlet. So you are obviously focused on these genres. Okay, so let's go back to a mind map. People, it doesn't take that long to do this. Really, it doesn't. It is the most effective way to study content, not just in English, but in all subjects. Okay, I know this. Not only did I use a mind map when I studied for my exams, my matric exams and university, but as I said, I'm doing a course at the moment. And at the end of every week of the course, I do a mind map on that course because it helps me. It helps me to memorize what I need to. Okay, so how exactly does doing a mind map work? The question is, does it work? Okay, it does work. Because the best kind of learning always happens when you read something. After reading it, you write it. And in this case, you're summarizing the important points. And then the next part of this is speaking it. That is why your English teacher is such a professional at all the genres they do. Because they speak about it all the time. There is a poem that we do in home language, The Child Who Was Shot Dead. Okay? The first time I taught that poem, I had no idea what was going on. I was winging it. But as I started speaking, I figured out what it was about. So, speaking is the best way to process the information. So if you look at your speech bubble in your notes, I've written RWS. What does the R stand for? Reading. W, writing. S, speaking. So what is a nice tip for all of you? Find someone. Who's doing short stories first additional language? Okay, you've got so much to do there. Why don't you find someone and say, I will do these two short stories, you do those two short stories, you do those two short stories. We get together and we speak about them. I will teach you my short story, you teach me your short story. So by combining the work, you're actually making it easier. This is also a very good tip to use for poetry. Okay? Whose home language? 12 poems. Okay? Why don't you find 3 other people? Each of you prep 4 poems. And over a period of time, you just go through the poems together. Okay, So let's look at an example of how you would draw a mind map. Here you have to fill this in. I've given you the starting of a mind map with a circle at the bottom. Okay? And you are going to draw the things that you need to summarize in order to answer all the questions. So I've just used the example of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Anyone who does it? One person. Okay, so I chose this because I knew that not many people would know it. Okay, so the first thing that you have to summarize with a story, so you can use your own example there. Let's say you do Hamlet, you can write Hamlet in the middle of your block. The first thing that you have to summarize is who are the main characters. Okay? So here you write down your main characters. So people, this is just an example, okay? I've written there Dr. Jekyll, and then you would write down the important facts about that person. And then the next one would be Mr. Hyde and the important facts. So let's say you do Hamlet. Of course, who's your main character? Hamlet. You would write important things down there. Then another main character would be Claudius. You would write important things down there. Obviously, with a play like Hamlet, you've got many main characters. So you would spend a lot of time summarizing this. But let's think of Macbeth, okay? Anyone who does Macbeth? Okay, let's not think of Macbeth. Let's think of the picture of Dorian Gray. Here we've only got 3 main characters, okay? You've got Basil, you've got Henry, and you've got Dorian. So, in other words, you are focusing on that. Life of Pi, I'm sure that there's many of you doing Life of Pi. There is one main character, Pi. Yes, there are then other minor characters that are important, but all of them link back to Pi. So here you would spend a lot of time on your main character. Okay. The next thing that you can list for yourself here is the imagery that is used. Imagery refers to the figures of speech or the sort of like symbols that are used. So I'm immediately thinking of in Life of Pi the island. Okay. I'm thinking of thank you for helping me there. The color orange, okay, for Life of Pi. In the picture of Dorian Gray, I'm obviously thinking of the color red that keeps repeating, the color white that keeps repeating, the imagery of mirrors, masks, shadows, and of course the picture. What was the other one we were speaking about? Hamlet. Okay, we're looking at the imagery of corruption. We're looking at the imagery of death. Okay, so that is what you're busy talking about here, your figures of speech. And then we have themes. So themes are the main ideas. Are you filling in your mind map? Yes. Okay. Themes are your main ideas. So, which one have I not spoken about in the Crucible? Here, I've done the Crucible 13 years ago. Someone give me a theme that you remember from the Crucible. Okay, some people have a lot of studying to do for the Crucible. Okay. What about truth? Surely truth versus lie. No, the theme is the main idea, like the main message of the story. Oh, okay, so like influence. Okay, influence. I mean, that is a main theme in the picture of Dorian Gray as well. The theme of influence. Yes? Hysteria. Thank you. Brilliant. I think that's what you will also try. Hysteria is a very big theme in the Crucible. I'm thinking of Hamlet. Hamlet's a very big theme is depression. Okay? Procrastination is a very big theme. Corruption. So if you are uncertain about the themes, you can use Google very, very easily. this is the main idea. So those of you who were uncertain what I meant when I said theme, right next to theme on your mind map, right there. It is the main idea or the main message of the play or of the story. For short stories, your teachers will have given this to you. For the majority of you, I'm sure that your teachers have discussed these things, but you are now taking all of the things that you've discussed through the year, you're compiling it into one paper, so that you can just look down at one paper and see, here's all my characters, here's all my images, here's all my themes. And then the last thing that you can do is you can talk a little bit about the plot. So, plot, right there on your mind map, write for yourself. Where does the story start? What is the rising action of the story? What is the climax of the story? What is the falling action, which we also call the denouement? And what is the resolution, if there is a resolution? Okay, so I'm thinking of Life of Pi here. You know, the story starts in India, Pondicherry. It ends somewhere else in Canada. So what really helps you here is to just kind of get an idea of where I'm starting, where I'm ending. I'm thinking of the rising action many, many times in Pi, but specifically when the boat, when the shipwreck is caused. Okay, so in Dorian Gray we have a very slow burn of rising action. Okay, the slow burn leading up until the point of Basil's death, and then later the stabbing of the painting. Same with the Shakespeare's, the Macbeths and Hamlets will have a slow burn. Crucible, I mean, it has to be fast because the story is very short. But again, you know, you've got this, the rising action, all the hysteria is caused, and then eventually Proctor, who sacrifices himself for his wife. Don't quote me on Crucible. It's been a long time since I've done that one. Okay. So, this is something that I have personally found very useful in recent years. Life of Pi, people, with your 100 chapters, here I can't help you very, very much. But you can figure out a way to do it, I'm sure. But for the rest of us lucky ones, the 5 acts of Hamlet, the 3 acts of the Crucible, 20 chapters of Dorian Gray, those sorts of things, what's really useful is to actually, so if you're doing the novel, even Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, very short, if you're doing these things, summarize, write a list of all the chapters, right there, chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way down to 20, or however many chapters you have. And then write a small summary of what happened. So here I've given an example from Hamlet. This is from Act 1. I've written a list from Act 1, Scene 1, Scene 2, Scene 3, Scene 4, Scene 5, and I've just given a short description. Do you see how short it is? A short description of what happens in that. This is so useful, and I'm going to show you in a second why it is useful. Because if you look in paper 2, you will see that when they give you your contextual questions, what do they do at the bottom? They tell you where it came from. At the bottom, they will say, this came from Act 1, Scene 3. In the short stories, I went and I looked and I saw at the top of your short stories, they give you a brief description of the part that they've taken out. They've said to you, this happens there. So when you have this, and you've got this list in your mind, you can actually use it together, and it will help you with that question that you will get asked, which I'm sure all of you know. Place this scene in context. It really helps with that. But looking through all the exam papers across the different genres, across home language and first additional language, I actually saw how many questions get asked about plot. And I'm going to show you this in a second. But let me first show you this one. Questions from character. People, it took me probably 10 minutes of looking through the papers that I've given you, first additional language and home language, look how many questions I found just from one paper on character. What does this reveal about so-and-so's character? I think I've only taken 2. He's a loyal man. Discuss your view. How does this influence your view of Sybil? So 3 questions on character. He has some questions on theme. A victim of his own ambition. The influence Lord Henry has on Dorian. He has some questions on imagery. So that's 5 in total. The figure of speech in his lines, why is it relevant? Discuss the description of the clock and what this reveals about the attitude towards upper class Victorian society. So 7 so far. How does this influence your attitude towards pie? So this is questions on plot at this stage. Substantiate your response. Explain the circumstances that have led to this encounter. I mean, that's plot. This is what I was speaking about, the usefulness of memorizing the chapter order. So in other words, 10 questions that I got from your different respective papers in not even 10 minutes, based on those main points that you summarize. The point that I'm trying to make is that this mind map, this technique, is not useless. It doesn't take that much time. It really doesn't take that much time. But, I mean, of those questions, there's 18 marks for you. 18 marks from a mind map. The rest, insight. Okay, so make sure you know what is the imagery. Google if you don't know it. And if you haven't received proper notes. Make sure you know what are the themes of your story. Google. All of these stories are on SparkNotes, which is the first thing that comes up when you Google the story. Google the main characters. Even if you want, I don't know, why don't you try and use AI? I've never tried to use AI for this reason, but why don't you ask AI to summarize the plot of The Picture of Dorian Gray? I don't recommend using AI to do the mind map because the process of the mind map, remember, it refers back to reading, writing, and speaking. But, you know, we can use these things to make our lives a bit easier. Okay, so this is what I was speaking about. So this is from the Crucible. I've got this little, you can't see my pointer. So you've got this. You've got this for every single one of your genres. From short stories, novels, dramas, they always tell you where it is. And this will help you to place your story. Okay. I wanted to show you how useful it is. So here I've got a short story. The narrator is confused. There I've got some of the examples, the full statements of the case. Okay, look at all these questions. Place this in context. Describe the time and place where the extract is set. Based on your knowledge of the play as a whole, comment on Gertrude's loyalty towards Hamlet. Using these lines as a starting point to critically discuss the impact this incident will have on Pye's life. Do you see how many questions are asked just on plot and just on the usefulness of memorizing the chapter order? Okay, so it is not useless. Okay, now, first additional language. If you want to shut your being for 2 seconds, you can. I need to speak about how to write an essay for the home language people. So, all of you, look at your hand. Look at your hand. I'm hoping that you all see 5 fingers. Okay? Now, looking at your hand is a very nice way to transition from writing your contextual questions to writing your essay. Because the hand helps you with 2 things, writing your notes. The first thing the hand helps you to remember is that there are 5 steps to writing an essay. And there are also 5 paragraphs in your essay. Okay. We have to work quickly. The first step is to draw a mind map. Okay, so write it down. You'll have to scribble very quickly, people. You draw a mind map. The next thing that you're going to do, and we'll practice for a few seconds, you look at a topic, you look at the topic, and you determine what the key words of the topic are, and you place the key words in the middle of that mind map. Step number 3, you work on your introduction. How do I work on my introduction? I state whether I agree with the topic or not. I define the topic in my own words. And I introduce my story. We'll practice this in a second. Do you see the example topic I've given you? Many characters in the Crucible are totally dishonorable and cannot be redeemed. You can even cross out the Crucible and write Hamlet, Dorian Gray, Life of Pi. Okay? What is the key word in that sentence? Many of the characters are totally dishonorable. Dishonorable is a key word, and redeemed. The idea of redemption. Okay. Do you agree? Then tell me, I agree partially. Do you agree? Yes. Do I agree? No. You don't have to say yes or no. I know that many of your teachers will have told you don't write yes or no. But you can say, many of the characters are. And that immediately tells me you are agreeing or you are disagreeing. Okay? Dishonorable. How can we say this in a different way? It doesn't have to be fancy. Is it good or is it bad? Bad. So I can be as simple as I want, and I can say there are many characters in the story that are bad, and nothing will ever save them. This story is about, and then you would just tell me what your story is about. This story is about a young man contemplating suicide. This story is about a young man who is shipwrecked at sea. This story is about a beautiful man who is living his best life in Victorian society. This story is about how hysteria can overwhelm a small village. Okay, so something brief, something short. You're telling your person who's marking, hey, I know what you're asking me. I know what you're asking me, and I know what my story is about. Read my essay. Listen to my argument. Then, the fourth thing that you have to do is you have to think of points to prove your topic. Here you have to refer to your characters, you have to refer to the events that happen in your story as well as your themes. And you can use the Peel method. Anyone know what the Peel method is? I think everyone does. Okay. There's another method, but I don't have time to speak about it now. The whole point of Peel, is to show you that you cannot just make a point. You have to explain it, and you have to give an example of it. Okay, I have to move on. So I'm going to just show you, there's an example of my mind map. There's an example of what we've done with the keywords, what we've done with the introduction, the body. Now I just want to speak about Peel. So the first thing that you're going to start off is you're going to make your point. For example, Manchester City is the best football team. This is my point. Okay? Now, my explanation is that many people desire to be part of this English team who have participated in many tournaments. And my example is that they're the first English team to win 4 straight top flight titles. And so, because of this, their excellent performance shows that they are the best team. Okay, we are creating peel arguments wherever we go. Who disagrees that Manchester City is not the best team? Okay, so assuming, young man, what is the best team?
Liverpool.
Liverpool is the best team. So you would use pool, sorry, not pool, you would use peel to tell me that you have a point. Liverpool is the best team. That is your point. Then you would explain your point, you would give me examples, and you would say, therefore, this shows that they are the best team. Okay. We do this all the time. Strawberry ice cream is the best. I love fried chicken. Blah, blah, blah. I'm constantly arguing throughout my life, proving to other people that my opinion is the best one. I use peel all the time. So now, knowing that you use peel all the time, you can use it in your literature essay as well. Okay. By the way, people, here we are dealing again with the idea of language and this idea of spelling and grammar being the most important thing ever. Here, spelling and grammar is not the most important thing ever. The most important thing is paragraph structure. So you do not have to write a rough draft for your literature essay. If you look on page 8 of your notes, I've asked you there, do I write a rough draft for literature essay? You can write there, no. Because I get more marks for structure than I get for spelling and grammar. You can write essay riddled with errors. You will still get 7 out of 10 if you write a very good structure for a literature essay. Okay. The last component of paper 2 that I want to discuss is the poetry. So, there are a few things that you need to know for poetry. You need to know what diction is. You know what it is? Word choice. Write it there if you do not know. Diction refers to words. You know what imagery is? Figures of speech. Write it there if you do not know what it is. Sound device. Alliteration, etc. The structure. You need to know what is tone. This is always a difficult one. Tone is the writer's attitude. Okay, the writer's attitude. And then the theme or what the poem is about. That is what you need to know. So my suggestion for how to study poetry is to use something called mnemonics. Okay? So I've got a little speech bubble there for you. What are mnemonics? Mnemonics is where you use the first letter of keywords to spell a new word. Write the little definition there for yourself. Okay? You use the first letter of the keyword. You don't have to write the example because there will be many examples to follow. For example, I would remember the word bell to remember bearing, to remember experience, to remember life, longevity. Okay, so I've created another word, and every letter in that word gives me something to remember. So what word do I want you to remember for poetry? Distance. Okay? I actually had a song that I would sing to you. Play. But unfortunately, time constraints. But you can go and listen to the Michael Bolton song. I know, way before your time, way before my time. But anyways, Michael Bolton has a song called You Can Go the Distance. Okay? Very inspiring. Okay? I found myself singing it last night while I was doing laundry because I was thinking of the presentation. Okay, so look at why I say distance. Look here. Okay, so you go the distance. You remember D is for diction. You remember I is for imagery. You remember S is for structure. Sorry, let me take that arrow away. You remember S is for sound device. You remember T is for tone. T is for theme, and then there's a little A there for about. So by going the distance, you remember all the things that you need for poetry. Okay, so I just had all these arrows to show, but I won't do that now. Okay, there's some other mnemonics that you can use when it comes to answering the questions. You can use the mnemonic of tell, sell, and kneel. So my students will know I tell them a whole long story about this. How do you answer a poetry question? You start by telling, how do you answer a poetry question on tone? You start by telling. Say what the tone is. Okay? Explain the tone. Link it back to the question. How do you answer a question about diction? You pick up your cell phone. You choose some words. You explain those words. You link them back to the question. How do you answer a question about imagery? The hardest one of them all. You have to kneel down and pray. Kneel. Name the image. Explain the image. Say what the effectiveness is. Link it back to the question. And that is how we use mnemonics to study for literature. Okay. Also helps you to write the poetry essay. So, now that you have done all the run-up, you have to stay focused on your target. The next step is to get into position. To get into position is to go through the instructions the day before, okay? And you've got your instructions with you. So the day before you write paper 2, you're going to go through your instructions. You will see paper 2's instructions. There are a lot of them. And you need to do this so that you know first additional language, you know where am I going to find my genres, what must I answer within my genres. Home language, you need to go through your instructions to know what poetry questions do I need to answer, what literature essay do I need to answer, what contextual questions do I need to answer. Okay, so make sure that you do that. That is how you get into position. Okay? And then the last one is contact acquired. This is how to deal with your actual paper. So for home language, you're going to use your 10 minutes in a different way. You're going to use your 10 minutes by reading your instructions and deciding on which poetry questions you are going to answer. And then you will decide on which literature question to answer. Had we enough time, I would be able to go through the paper I've given you and show you, but I have to move on to paper 3. First additional language, you're going to use your reading time in a similar way to paper 1. You're going to read your instructions carefully, you're going to read your text carefully, you're going to read your questions and the important parts of your texts. What is something that both of you, home language, first additional language, what should you not do in paper 2? You should not read the entire paper. It is 23 pages long. First additional language, for the short stories, it might even be longer. So do not read your entire paper, you read your instructions, and that will help guide you to the next part. And there you've got contact acquired. You tackle paper 2. Okay, perfect timing. Paper 3. It's a nice short one. Okay, so paper 1, we bake a cake. Paper 2, we tackle. Paper 3, we build a nest. And we jump on a springboard. So there's 2 metaphors for this one. When you build a nest, okay, so it's not just birds that build nests. In researching this particular metaphor, I found that people build nests quite a bit. You have to plan. You have to plan where you're going to put the nest. You have to plan what materials you're going to use. Then the next thing that you have to do is you have to settle in your nest. Just imagine trying on a new pair of sneakers. Okay? the first 2 days, your foot is not settled in them. But the more you walk with them, the more your foot starts to settle in them. So when you build a nest, the bird has to settle, and then it can only lay its eggs. So write down, what do I mean by planning where? What I mean by this is to choose your topic. That's the first thing that you have to do to approach this paper. Planning what materials to use. This is your mind map or your planning of the essay. Here I won't be strict about mind map. There's many other ways to plan for your essay. What do I mean by settling? I mean a rough draft. And what do I mean by laying your eggs? Writing your final draft. Build a proper nest. There'll be no need for crying over broken eggs. Okay, so in your reading time, people, you have to use this to choose your essay topic. Okay? Think carefully. Are all of you from Pretoria? I don't know. Okay. But I just want to give you an example for 1 second. Perhaps this weekend has been taxing on you. You've spent some time sitting on this chair and you've had to listen to someone speak to you, okay? People that have wanted to engage in you. I want you to imagine for a second what your marker is going through. This marker starts marking at 7 o'clock in the morning and pen down at 6 in the evening. There is a 15-minute break at 10 o'clock, another 15-minute break at 4 o'clock, and there is an hour lunch at 12 o'clock. That person has sat on that chair for 10 hours, and your essay lands up in front of them. Surely, you must realize that when you choose your topic, you want to do something that is just a little bit different from the person they've marked just before. So you've heard that saying, you're all unique? Never heard someone say you're unique, you're special? Well, people, you are all very unique, just like everybody else. That means that whether you like it or not, your first idea is going to be the first idea of at least 50,000 other people. Okay? If you're going to settle down in your first idea, you are going to be marked like the other 55,000 people. But if you're going to write like 55,000 other people, you're going to get the marks of 55,000 other people. You want to get the marks of those 3%, those people that write a bit differently. So here, there are some preparation strategies that we're going to do together and which you are going to revise at home. Okay, so first of all, what 2 types of essays do you get? There's actually only 2 types: stories and arguments. Okay, so stories are usually based on the pictures of the essay topics, but any essay topic can be a story, and this is really where your imagination must come alive. So all of us think of similar things when we write our essays, but we must go beyond the obvious. So for example, if I had to give you that picture, all of us immediately think of the sea. Okay? We can do something else with that. We can talk about freedom, for example. Okay? Maybe you want to stick with your idea of the sea because you want to speak about a boat. Okay, why don't you do something different? What about a boat that travels underneath the sea? What about a boat that travels, what about if this was another planet? Okay, you have to stick to your picture, but you can interpret it in any way you want. And remember, there was a question here where they asked about, it was you asked, will they read everything? People, they have to find a link. They have to find a link between your topic and the picture. You can't write about some obscure thing. You know, here you can't write about deserts. But even if you wrote about a desert and you contrasted desert to sea, there's your link. So your marker is going to find the link. Although I'm not saying that the responsibility is not in your boat, but you must realize that they will try and link everything that you've written to your topic. Okay, so try and make your writing different. You can interpret the picture in any way you want. Okay, glasses, spectacles, doesn't have to be about sight. It can be about something else. Okay, it can be about a spy who goes and breaks in somewhere, and the evidence he leaves behind is his glasses. Do you see the point that I'm trying to make? Yeah. You don't always have to, a heart doesn't have to be love. Flowers that are broken and drooping doesn't have to be depression. Okay, it can be something else. Okay, I'm thinking of that picture of the flowers drooping. You know, so many people, when that picture was in the topic, so many people wrote about gender-based violence and they wrote about depression. It was so overwhelming to mark this. But I'm thinking about, what if something happened and you write some other story, and because of this story that happened, people forgot to water their flowers. There's your link. Okay, it doesn't always have to be about the first thing that you think of. Take your original idea, add something to it to make it different. Okay, so it will still link, but it can be completely different. Yes?
Miss, which topics are restricted from writing about?
Like what kind of content? I do have a slide about that. Will you wait, and then perhaps you can ask a question if you have any questions about that. Okay, so what kind of story essays do you get? You get your narrative essay, descriptive, reflective. This is what you all know, okay? So yeah, I've given you some examples. How about a narrative essay, the first day on a boat and then you crash and you discover some underwater world? A descriptive essay. So this is also like a narrative essay, but focusing on all the things that you can see, hear, smell, and touch. How about traveling on a distant planet where everything is blue? Okay? Or a reflective essay. A nice day on the beach where there's a shipwreck and you land on an abandoned island. So you take your original idea, you add something to it to make it different. The next type of essays that you get is argumentative. So this is when you're going to try and convince someone about a point. It can either be, so this, abolishing plastic is an unrealistic expectation. This one was in paper 3 of last year. But this one was in, I think, 2016, Sticks in a Bundle or Unbreakable. Do you see how this one could be a narrative essay as well? But also an argumentative essay. So this one is more descriptive. This is the idea that when you're all together, it's more difficult to destroy you. Okay, so any essay, or most essays, can be argumentative as well as narrative, or like the story essays. There's two types of arguments that you get. You get your argumentative essay, and then you also get the discursive essay. So the discursive essay, this is when you are discussing 2 points. So you essentially would agree with your topic and you would disagree at the same time. Now, there is this false idea that an argumentative essay or arguments do not get high marks in paper 3. This is a false idea. Arguments, If you are not a good writer, go for the argumentative essay. If you follow your simple structure of writing an argumentative essay, you can get an easy 65%. Just from following the structure of writing an argumentative essay. What is the structure of an argumentative essay? Remember the hand? Okay. So arguments are also literature essays, speeches. Sometimes a transactional writing will be a speech. That's also an argument. Okay. So don't think that argumentative essays do not get good marks. In actual fact, there have been many times. Okay, let me not say many times. 3 times. So I've marked paper 3 since 2016. That makes me almost 8 years of marking paper 3. Of those 8 years, I've given 6 50 out of 50s. Not bad. Of those 50 out of 50s, 3 of them were argumentative essays. Do not think that you cannot get total for paper 3, and do not think that you cannot write a good argumentative essay and get a good mark. Okay, so how do I choose my topic? I use my reading time very carefully. I don't just choose the first topic that comes to my mind. There's some preparation that I can do at home. We'll speak about that on the next slide. And I'm going to look carefully at my essay topics. Think about, am I going to write argumentative? Am I going to write discursive? Am I going to write narrative? What am I going to write? Okay? And based off of that, I choose my topic. I do not simply go for the first one. I do not simply go for my first thought. I very often say, take your first thought, mentally crumble it up like you would crumble up a piece of paper, and throw it in the dustbin. And go to your second thought and say, what else? What else can I write about? Okay, so what materials do I use when I write my essay? I have to plan. Rough draft is not planning. Sorry, people, it's not. Okay? A planning is a mind map. But here I'm interpreting the concept of a mind map. I'm saying that you can do a traditional mind map like the one that I've shown you, but you can also use keywords and phrases to help you come up with ideas, and you can use question words. So this I don't have in your notes. Perhaps you want to quickly write this down. Keywords and phrases, mind map, questions. And then the next few slides will elaborate on what I mean by these things. So how do I use keywords and phrases? Well, this works very well for my picture or my story essays. It also works well to move from literal to figurative thinking. So yeah, I've got a very strange picture for you. I've got a man with a rhino and an umbrella. So I would start by simply writing that down. Man, rhino, umbrella. Then I would think, okay, what does an umbrella represent? Something protective, something inclusive. Okay, what does a rhino represent? Okay, an animal, but also strength, power. What does a human represent? Okay, in this context, the human is weaker, but there is some kind of a relationship established between the two. Okay, so I can write a story about a man who was very brutal and strong. He met someone, he fell in love, and he protected this person. I have not mentioned a rhino, but I will still get my marks. Because the concept of strength is there, the concept of protection is there, and the concept of relationship is there. Okay, so this is what I mean. We do not have to always be literal. Okay, so you write down your thoughts. I'm looking at this last point here. How to use this planning is that you write down thoughts and ideas that you have. You try and incorporate the entire picture, and maybe you try and incorporate all your different ideas. Okay, so mind map, useful. And in actual fact, if you're writing an argumentative essay, you must use a mind map. Poetry essays, literature essays are all based on the spider diagram format, which is the circle with the 5 arrows that come out. But you can also use your hand, your thumb being the introduction, your pinky finger being your conclusion, and the 3 fingers in the middle being your body. I've also seen this quite often in the essays that I've marked. An arrow, the top part is the intro, bottom part is the conclusion, 3 parts in the middle is the body. I've also seen the burger. Any teacher who has taught the burger technique? Okay, I know that the Afrikaans teachers like to use the burger technique. So the bun, the patty, the tomato, and the lettuce. Okay. Lastly, how do I plan for my essays? I can use question words. So here you can actually combine this along with your other ways of planning. So here the questions that I'm looking at is who am I going to write about? Where is the story going to take place? When is the story going to take place? What is taking place? And why is that taking place? What is important with this is that for some reason, many of you like to start your essays in the middle of the story, which can be effective if it is done correctly. But if you are very vague in your introduction, your marker is not going to know where you are. So if you have this, you're actually planning a plot the way a novelist would plan a book. So this helps you to do that. And then, unfortunately, it fell over to the next page, but I had a little speech bubble there which says which resonates with you the most. So right now, think which one do you like the most and circle that for yourself. You don't have to choose this. I'm just thinking based on your instinct right now, which one works the best for you. Okay, now I'm going to say something. Planning is not just what you write, but how you write it. And that is why I have a big 3, 2, 1 on the next page. Because 3, 2, 1 helps you to use some fancy words, some rhetoric language, and some idioms and quotes. Okay. Due to time constraints, I would like to do the transactional writing as well. Due to time constraints, I'm not going to go through it, but please do. There's some very nice prompts there, and you can actually tell your parents that in order to do the one on vocabulary, they need to buy you a packet of jelly tots and Smarties. So if you do the one on vocab with a packet of jelly tots and a packet of Smarties, then it will help you very much. Okay, I've also got some idioms and proverbs there, which is I have not given you the meaning for. You can go and research the meaning at your own time, and maybe this will inspire you to find some other idioms and proverbs to use in your writing. So, the last part of the essay is to settle down and to write a rough draft. The purpose of the rough draft is to alleviate and edit language errors. Do you get marks for rough draft? No. Is it important? Yes. It is also a very good backup. If you cannot complete your final, I can promise you now, your marker will go back and mark your rough draft from the point where you left off. So complete your rough draft in its entirety. Cross it out neatly. Do cross it out. But your marker will go and mark it. Okay. And then obviously final draft. Be very wary of including inappropriate information. So here I'm talking about swearing, drug and alcohol abuse, and sexual references. Be very wary of writing typical essays that everyone else would write about. COVID, environmental destruction, gender-based violence. It is not that these topics are not important, but everyone writes about them. Be careful of writing the essays that you write for LO. Essays about drug abuse, peer pressure, alcohol abuse. If you want to use these topics, be careful, put an imaginative twist on them. Be wary of writing boring essays. I have a few minutes to speak about transactionals. So, very recently we all watched the Olympics, and perhaps you would have noticed that there is a sport called diving. How do I dive? Well, first of all, I have to climb up a very tall ladder. And once I've gotten to the top of this tall ladder, I now need to jump and get myself as deep into the pool as possible. So I start by hopping on this board, and this board becomes a springboard, as you can see here, okay? And I start gaining momentum, and the more momentum I gain, eventually I hop up into the air and I dive straight down, and my aim in the sport of diving is to go as deeply as possible. Okay, so this is what we have to do with transactional writing. Here, our metaphor is diving. So, if you write down in your notes, what is climbing? Climbing is studying. You have to study for transactional writing. You must know your formats. What is the hopping? Planning. And what is the diving? The diving is the depth of the topic. Your language mark comes from your use of tone, register, and style. I have left this blank on purpose. I have not even included the definitions here, so that you can go and find out, what does this mean? You know what tone is. Register and style, we don't know. I will give you a hint. Register, the focus is on the vocabulary that you use, but style is the focus on the grammar that you use. Then, I've given you a list of your longer transactionals. You must know all of them. Any of them can be asked. Home language, I doubt you will get a CV. Home language, I doubt you will get an agenda. Okay. Then there's a list of shorter transactionals. This is only for first editional language. If you look on your last page, I've given you one that has not been included in the list because it is relatively new, but it is gaining popularity. So far it has been in 2 question papers in the last 3 years. They have seemed to move away from obituary in order to favor the email. They also seem to be including the formal report into the transactionals. This is dangerous. If you do not know what a formal report is, it is not a formal letter. So you have to avoid the formal report with everything inside of you if you do not know how to write it. If you do know how to write it, you'll know that there's at least 20 things that you have to memorize to write a formal report. So it is not one of them that I recommend. Okay, so I need to speak to you about how to hop. Okay. So how to hop, you need to find the key concepts in your topic. So here, my key concept is youth organization. Everyone circle youth organization. The next one is concert. The next one is town. The next one is director. The next one is providing feedback on the event. People, If you write me an email where you say, "Dear Director of Public Facilities, thank you for the for the opportunity for us to have a concert as the youth in our town. We think that you should work on your stadium because we had a problem with how dirty it was. Thank you very much." You've elaborated. But you are still not going to get a good mark for your transactional. Because what youth organization are you writing from, people? What concert was hosted? In what town are you staying? What is the name of this director? Surely, based off of this topic, if you were this person, you would know who the director was. Because you've worked with them before. Even though I don't know, I work at Tuxport High School, I don't personally know the director of the high performance sector, but I know that his name is Stephen Ball. So when I write an email thanking him for the use of his facilities, I'm going to write, "Thank you, Mr. Stephen Ball." I'm not going to write, "Thank you, sir." I'm going to use his name because that is the most polite way of reading it. My principal said she receives hundreds of emails a year, people wanting a job from her. She doesn't even look at the emails that don't use her name. Because if you want a job, surely you will do the research to find the name of the person. So people make up a name. Lie. You don't have to tell the truth when you write down your address in your letter. I'm not going to go and check, do you stay at number 33 Cherry Tree Lane? So you need to invent here. You need to elaborate on the topic. Provide feedback. Don't just say one thing, your stadiums are dirty. No, say, we like this, we dislike this, we recommend this. And end off. Don't just stay on the surface. You are not going to get a good mark for your dive if you stay on the surface. You want to dive down as deep as possible. When you have time and when you are preparing for paper 3, it's one of the first few papers that you write. Take a look at the memo, freely available on the internet. Take a look and you will see that high marks come from something they call highly elaborated. It means every single point. Practice this. I've given you a paper 3. Practice circling all the topics, even the ones that you don't usually like. Circle all the topics, the main ideas, and think, how would I develop this? What youth organization? I would write a youth organization about people in wheelchairs. That's what I would do. Okay? The concert would be, I don't know, Taylor Swift, who came to raise money for young people in wheelchairs. In my town of Standerton, I would name my director and I would give adequate feedback. There, 5 seconds, I've elaborated on my topic. And I'll get a much higher mark. In actual fact, I'll get distinction between 80 and up just from elaborating on the key concepts. Okay, so use all your planning elements to write an in-depth response. Okay, so they have alerted me that we have another 10 minutes left, but I'm done with my presentation. Are there any questions that you would like to ask me very briefly? 5 minutes. Sorry, 5 minutes. Yes.
I just wanted to know, when it comes to an essay, right? Would you recommend writing normal English or Victorian English?
No, always write in your normal English. You're obviously writing formal, so you're avoiding things like contractions and you're avoiding slang, which is made up words. But I wouldn't be, they use the word verbose. Verbose is when you are deliberately exaggerating the language that you're using. It doesn't fit. Remember, part of your language mark comes down to the tone that you're using as well as your register. So the way, your style, and the way you've written it. So no, not Victorian English. Write normally. Write the way you speak. But go to those 3, 2, 1 points that I've given to build on your vocabulary. Do that. Build on vocab, build on rhetoric language. Okay. Yes.
Let's say that like transactional, we use like new words that were brought into the Oxford Dictionary, and the teachers don't know about it, tell us about it.
Slang words. So
they're in the dictionary and they're actual words. But like they're really added.
no, don't worry about that. If it's so you then speaking about colloquial language, everyday spoken language, it will depend on your transactional. Be careful, however, you still want to be semi-formal is the word I'm going to use here. Okay, so you are allowed to use it. For example, I'm thinking of, let's say you have a phrase from another language, okay? You're allowed to include that, but in brackets, just write what the meaning is in English. This means that you're still writing in English, but you've got a saying that you have a meaning that will only come across in Zulu. You can do that, but you translate it into English. Only a few words though. So I hope that gives you a guide to the answer. Another question?
Ma'am, when we're doing this, when we have to use the pronoun, if we indicate
The most effective way would be to do both. Okay, so to link it to the point, and even if you have to have another sentence, even if you have to be as obvious as saying, this point links to my topic in this way. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. I enjoyed this very much. I hope that this helps you, and I do believe it will.